All right, brilliant. Thank you so much for coming along. I'm really, really pleased to be able to speak to you all. This is about a piece of work which is really, really community driven. So it would be unfair if I didn't bring two very, very important people to this piece of work to speak to you as well as myself today. So we will be hearing from André and Arianna as we go by. Okay, so I would like to give you a bit of background, some of the origin and motivation for this piece of work. So it would be remiss if I didn't thank our funders, who are the Arts and Humanities Research Council. So if we talk a lot about arts and humanities, that's because they gave us the money. And I would very, very much like to think that what you hear from us today applies to other disciplines, and certainly some of it is absolutely discipline agnostic. So this came as part of the Data Culture Project, which was led by the Alan Turing Institute. The principal investigator was Peter Francois from Oxford. And the mission of that was to build sustainable communities around arts and humanities data sets and tools. So that was the mission. And the strand that I led was this roadmap, and you'll be hearing much more about that. Just say the pilot phase ended in 2025, and we're actively taking it forwards. And at the end, we'll give you some information about how you can engage in that if you would like. So some of the background to this is we want to absolutely accept that digital arts and humanities research is getting increasingly complex. I think you'll probably find that across the board as we see advances in AI, in HPC. But let's also acknowledge that arts and humanities research has amazingly complex data sets, heterogeneous data sets. And there's some really, really interesting challenges here. And that collaboration with RSEs, fragmented, comes in different shapes and sizes depending on where you're working and where the RSEs are working as well. And we really, really wanted to build upon the previous work. So there are amazing either reports, the RSE paper there, Software Sustainability Institute and the AHRC have both founded reports in this area. So we wanted to build upon the expertise and things that were already identified. So data culture came along at a wonderful time, and I really wanted to use it as a vehicle to take what the community had said previously, what they wanted to do, and turn that into a bit of a concrete plan and involve lots of people. So this is the result of 30 odd people, and you'll hear much more about that later. So really what we had our site set on was the role of our research software engineering becoming ever more essential. I think it's very, very clear from everybody we spoke to and the evidence that we've got that this is not going away, and I'm very pleased about that. That there are significant gaps, and you even heard that in the first talk from Graham here, in capacity, in skills, in awareness, in just being able to get the right people with the right challenges together. And I want to say that arts and humanities researchers, their institutions can often leave them lacking with collaboration opportunities and support. Not every institution has RSE groups, and not every institution has RSE groups that are confident talking to arts and humanities researchers. So it goes both ways. There are many opportunities where just effective dialogue does not happen because the two groups just haven't done it before. So what can we do to address that? Or lunch sleep. There we go. So what we wanted to do, our aims for this was to provide access to RSE collaboration in arts and humanities for researchers who need it. So let's democratize an opportunity and access to people with the right skills. Increase levels of digital literacy across the board, both RSEs and arts and humanities researchers, so they can begin to ask the right questions and really get the most out of those collaborations. And to spark growth in the number of ambitious projects that we're seeing in this area. I think we need to showcase what is possible. We've seen some amazing endeavors. Let's do more. Let's be at the cutting edge. And I think that's really a moment that we'd be proud to do that. And finally, to work as an advocate. So between these collaborative opportunities, let's showcase again what can happen and let others be part of that conversation as well. So that's the sort of background and setup. I'm going to hand over to André, who can tell you much more about what actually happened. And I will move the hand up the screen.
Thank you, Dave. So we wanted this to be kind of a proper creative process, that we kind of co-authored this roadmap to get to this, to address these challenges together. But how to do it? If you have, there were some challenges. Everyone is very busy. They will be doing this. If you were forming a group to do this, they will be doing this on top of their own jobs, across institutions, across locations, and with different individual interests and working cultures. But that was exactly what we wanted to capture and put together to see what emerging converging route would come out of this. So how do we did it? So we needed to kind of build a community around this. So we started creating a group of people, started with 26, we got to 40 at some point, different specialisms, different gender balance, career stages, and geographical spread. But we also wanted to do it in a manageable way, and let people invite others, but also keep it manageable in terms of attendance. But people could stand in for others when they have workshops, but everyone could collaborate online in the same way. We also did a wider consultation, so we have been kind of in conferences in York, Leeds, and others in London, consulting the community around the challenges that we had. We also have a survey that we're going to talk a little bit more about that, about the impact of RCs. And we created a sort of a process where we had workshops where we brought everyone together, alternated with periods of co-working. The workshops were designed to kind of help us not avoid the hard questions, but make sure also that we were kind of evolving. Everyone was evolving with the thinking together. So we started, the workshops covered what you see here in the slides. We started from the very beginning saying, look, let's tell the stories. What do you see on the ground? If you have to share with everyone what is exactly happening that is a problem or an opportunity, how to tell those stories. Once we capture that and we annotate it, we kind of try to look at those stories and see what are the challenges and opportunities that we could identify on those stories. And by doing that, we could then, we were asking, can we extrapolate those into defining the problems that we want to address? Once we had that, then we could also kind of extrapolate the objectives, the scope, and the aims of the whole project. So I'm saying this because we wanted to go from the very beginning and look at this with a fresh mind, even though this had been discussed in a community for a long time. Once we have done these steps, we started looking at change and say, what are the things we want to stop doing, what are the things we continue doing, or do a little bit differently? And that led to kind of designing the program I'm going to show in a minute, the activities and the priorities that we kind of wrote in the roadmap. When we had an idea about the program, we started looking at kind of the model, how we would operate, and how we would implement. And this implementation also considered what we didn't know at the time and what we would be understanding on the process of putting this capability together. At the same time, when we had the workshops, we put online resources together. We had a kind of one-stop shop, one website with all types of resources we could have to fit different working styles and ways of doing. So we had recordings, we had notes, visual ones on Miro, docs, transcripts, summaries, newsletters that we kind of updated the group from time to time, management documents, everything in one place so everyone could kind of in their own time see how much they could contribute in a way that would be more suitable to them. And one important thing that also we engaged professional writers. That was really crucial for us because we had a voice telling back to us what actually we were coming up with. And that kind of clarified a lot for the group what was the direction that we were going with our thinking and where our documentation was pointing to. And that also led us to kind of have a very early on a discussion about authorship. So the group could think from the very beginning, say, look, how are we going to credit our work in this process? And that was very good to do in the very early stage. So what, in the end, the roadmap is calling for? Two important notes. So the term in the roadmap, RSCs, is used very broadly as in a way that the digital research, digital technical professionals are used for, as a term by the KRI. And also we recognize that infrastructure or everything we're creating is both technical and social. But one key thing about the roadmap is that we try to create it in a way that it was avoiding duplication, but connecting and extending the successful activities that we already could identify in the environment of digital humanities and computational arts research. But also it kind of creates, you can see a few case studies that illustrate how we think those partnerships and how honoring and kind of extending those types of activities can cover the whole program of the roadmap. But getting to it, the roadmap then is divided in three areas. We grouped the activities in three types. One is more responsive. During our discussions, we realized that there was so much that is already happening, but needed some sort of connection, a little bit of activity that could kind of enhance, but kind of make the environment a slightly more productive, more effective, more easier for people to do better what they're already doing. So in this responsive area, we have at the center this research collaboration. This is idea that we could have kind of a directory of RSCs with different skills who could be matched to projects in different ways. So we had kind of a sort of a matchmaking service that would kind of help people find the skills that they would need. But there's also training, as Dave was saying, about digital skills for researchers, but also humanities and arts methodologies for RSCs, and also need to do some outreach to kind of help people know that that is there and how we operate, etc. The second area called active is because we think that's, whilst there is this whole thing already happening and it's a lot, we also need to kind of have some agenda that is going to create methods and tools that are useful for across a lot of disciplines. So but we need to do that with the community. So the way we thought that could happen is a sort of incubator program where we would invite the community to come to think about solutions and then provide the ideas for addressing those questions about methods and tools for the whole community. And crucially, we also thought we needed an area of strategic thinking, an area for creating some intelligence, monitoring, and research about the environment. So we could first assess the impact we're doing ourselves as a capability, but also inform the community about strategic issues that are changing in policy and changing technologies and so on. I think that's it for me. The only other thing I would say is that also in terms of the implementation, this would also be done in dialogue with the community. So we would kind of use this strategic area to kind of assess how the implementation is going and adapt as it goes. Arianna?
Right, so midway through the amazing work that André had just been describing, our funders came to us and basically said, where's the evidence that RSCs are actually worth investing in? Now, I won't tell you what noise I made at that moment in time, but you can probably guess. After decades and decades and decades of promotion, our funders turned around and said, okay, justify yourselves. And I was a little bit annoyed, but I thought, okay, let's rise to that challenge. So this is a slightly clickbaity title that the program's got. So there is lots of evidence of why RSC groups are good for universities and other organizations. And there's a fantastic evidence base which helps describe some of those things. There's much less evidence on how RSC and RSCs contribute to funders' aims. So that's really, because we want to dialogue with the funders, that's where we had to sort of address this next piece of work. And even less evidence in arts and humanities. So we went out and we gathered evidence. We thought, okay, we'll throw the kitchen sink at this. So as long as it's public, tell us about it. Community, just give us URLs, give us reports, give us examples of where RSCs have done good. And the data set, which you'll get a link to later, is discipline neutral. But what we did was we took the examples that spoke about arts and humanities and boiled them down into a report that also goes alongside the roadmap. So instead of having one big, awkward, difficult piece of work to write, we now have three. So we did it though. So in short, RSCs did all these things. They make outputs possible, full stop. Things exist in the world that could not have happened otherwise. I think it's also worth saying they make better research outputs. Research is accelerated. We get to findings much, much quicker with working with RSEs. And people told us that RSEs expanded research possibilities. So that's asking new questions. And I really love that. Facilitating progress. RSEs were really, really thanked for our ability to basically project manage. How we manage and deliver code was also really, really useful to projects that had other roles in there as well. And finally, because we can find efficiencies, if you're using HPC, for instance, we can cut costs. And that is noticed on the bottom line. And the bit that I really love is that it seemed no matter who RSEs were interacting with, that was a really positive experience for both parties. Everybody skilled up, understood each other, and could collaborate much better. And one of my favorite quotes is this one, which says, RSEs played a crucial role in transforming the project from a traditional historical study into a sophisticated digital humanities initiative. Their work bridged the gap between academic research questions and technical implementation. I really love that. So, scan a QR code, scan the QR code if you like. That will bring you to the report and the narrative that we put on from the arts and humanities side of things. Click through to find the actual database itself, where you'll be able to access the whole data bank. And I would really, really love it if somebody wanted to take that forwards. It would be ideal as an SSI fellowship, for instance. So there's lots more that can happen in this space. And the main roadmap also references this. So I think this is now going to be Arianna.
Thank you
for your patience.
That is me. So obviously, both André and Dave talked a lot already about impact in the sense of what is the difference that RSE can make to our disciplines or have made to our disciplines. But we wanted to reflect a bit more on if the roadmap is a way to get somewhere, what's the change, what's the impact we want to make, and how can we articulate that? So we did that partially indeed analyzing the case studies, the evidence that they just mentioned. So what were the models out there? What were the cases that could showcase the kind of change we want to make happen? But in particular, within the roadmap itself, so as Dave said, there are different documents, right? But within the roadmap, we decided to include three specific case studies that had to do the tricky things to kind of showcase who commissioned this roadmap, that we do have already some substantial capability. So we have a lot of potential to make change, but at the same time, we need to scale. So we need more investment to make that happen. And why do we need more investment? Because we need to grow in terms of the community of users and beneficiaries of this sort of capabilities, of this sort of use cases that we identified, because we want to expand RSE good practices beyond the specific, if you like, local context. And last but not least, because we also want to innovate. So we do not want to stagnate. And we do have these interesting case studies, but they still represent potentially areas that are not going to grow or are not going to bring further innovation if there is not more investment in those areas. So the three case studies that were chosen because the community really brought them in more than anything, so there wasn't a selection, were one from the National Archives, and the case studies around the digital archive of the UK government web archive. There was the University of Edinburgh with the Centre for Data, Culture and Society Rapid Prototyping Sandpit, and finally King's College London Digital Lab, where I'm based and work. So why we thought these were interesting example, because they showcase, in the case of the archive, an example of collaboration between RSEs in-house, but more specifically from a national capability if it existed, and the curators at the archive to enable this digital collection to kind of be accessible in a better way, and also to promote advanced use cases. So that was why the archive was a good example. The Edinburgh Sandpit showcased how collaboration between RSEs and researchers could define robust requirements for a project, experiment, and then enable application for larger funding. And so the national capability would allow this collaboration to expand and go beyond that Sandpit. And finally, in the case of the lab, similar to the Edinburgh case, we wanted to showcase the potential, the collaboration between RSE in-house and from the national capability could enable, not only in terms of larger funding application, experimentation, the funding requirements, but also in terms of processes that could enable better digital research infrastructures. So for example, if you came to our posters yesterday about digital accessibility, that's an example of a process that the lab is working to refine that is still very much at the local context. So we brought it here for discussion, but imagine if we had a national capability that was looking at these processes together, coordinating, bringing different disciplines and so on. It would be a very different picture. The other thing, again, it was stressed already, was what kind of, how can we articulate the fact that the impact, it's relevant for different stakeholders. So there was it was mentioned that the authorship was pretty wide, but also that because of that, it could actually have benefits beyond arts and humanities, beyond cultural heritage and the disciplines we mainly work on. So it was mentioned already that there was quite a wide list of contributors. And I think it's important to stress that indeed they represented multiple institutions. Some are here in the audience, across domains and across professions. And I think the diversity of interest represents also, if you like, different stakeholding or stakeholders in the roadmap itself, in the implementation of the roadmap, as well as I said, diversity of expertise. And this is what, again, we know well in an RSC conference, this is what digital research infrastructure need, this diversity of expertise and views. So there were people representing university, people representing institutional research organization, with academic roles, with digital RTP's role, and so on. So how did we articulate the benefits and impact? Well, first of all, in terms of methods and technologies, again, it's weird to say this as an RSC conference when we know that the role of RSCs is to abstract out from the specific niche research questions and looking at the common problems, common methods, and apply those potentially to different specific cases. So that's what a national capability of this kind could enable. And more specifically in terms of RSC practices, expand, promote, really make it happen, the change in reproducibility of these methods and tools, and of course adaptability to different type of challenges in research context. And then very important, some of the mechanisms that roadmap identified, for example, the matchmaking that André mentioned, would allow RSCs from different domains to get exposed to other domains. In particular, in our case, obviously, we'd like this to happen in the arts and humanities. And that exposure in the longer term could then become proficiency in certain areas, whether it's, I don't know, digital history, for example, or other more specific challenges. And again, in the longer term, hopefully, other job opportunities for people that might want to move between working in different contexts and disciplines. And finally, we also thought that the importance, in a way, of involving these different stakeholders could enable, at the level of a national capability, the possibility to exchange good practices in terms of how this digital research infrastructure are built. Obviously, there are already quite important and substantial digital research infrastructure in other domains. What can we learn from each other in terms of collaboration, in terms of the community management process that André mentioned, in terms of governance, structures, and so on. So the effort to lead that could achieve this. And I'm going to end it there saying that, I don't know if André, you want to add more, that obviously some things are already happening, but there is also an effort to keep momentum around the roadmap. And so we're very happy for people to contact us if you want to be kept in the loop of the next steps. Thank you.
That might be a question for you, André, given what Arianna thought. The first question is, now we've gathered this amazing data sets, this evidence bank. What should we all do next with it?
Yeah, so the project finished, I mean, the funding we had was to kind of come up with this concrete plan. So the HRC told us, look, we have done lots of research, we have lots of discussions in the community. Please tell us, can you do this work collectively, but kind of give us a concrete plan that kind of give us next steps to produce it? We have the plan. But now the funding was supposed to end at that point. What we're doing now is kind of bringing together some of the groups of the institutions that were involved in the roadmap to come together to think a little bit about what would be the next steps. How can we kind of leverage the existing infrastructure that is already there, the existing investments, but also look for more funding to start implementing parts or start strategically thinking about how we're going to kind of get the roadmap off the ground. So if you're interested in this sort of discussion, even just being in the loop, contact us. There's our email somewhere, but you can find us online. And we can kind of keep you in the loop and talk about if we're having meetings or have discussions. This continues to be a community-led initiative, and we want to keep it like that.
Can I just add a little bit about the evidence bank as well, about RSEs across all disciplines? Please, somebody adopt that. Ask further questions. Help us refine that. We had a very short period of time in which to get the responses we did. That is all openly published. We would love somebody to take that on for the wider RSE community, as humanities or not. So there's a great opportunity there as well as the roadmap. I thought just had that on.
Can you keep the answer to this short so we can move on after this? So how did you do project management, basically, with all these difficult activities across all these different people?
Well, we had a project manager, which was absolutely fantastic, and we had a community manager. So I think, André, if you want to sort of describe about how you help keep everything on track.
Yeah, I think there was this understanding from the very beginning that we were going to create a community, but the contributions need to come from in different ways and on the time and availability that people had. So the idea was that we were going to create this moments, these 3 workshops along about 6 months or maybe 7 months, that people would come if they can, hybrid ones, and would keep the documentation the best as we could in one entry point and in multiple formats, so everyone could pitch in the way that it was more suitable to them. We had a project manager who helped us keep us on track, but also I think it was I think that we are very lucky, the arts and humanities community, because everyone has this already kind of, they have this willingness to engage and be helpful with their time. What I tried to do as community manager was not only having the online resources at the workshops, but also keeping in contact with people via email. Sometimes it was easier just to have an interview and kind of have a chat with someone at some point, or have working groups that people would like to lead with their particular expertise. But if the question is about how the capability would work itself, there is if you read the roadmap, there is a central team that kind of from that kind of creates the collaborations and the partnerships with other institutions, and that's how we try to avoid duplication and create additionality to the ecosystem that is already there and create more where it is needed.